Welcome back to Dinar for Veterans, the channel built for those who serve this country and are now fighting a different kind of battle, the battle for financial freedom and long-term security. If you are holding Iraqi dinar, Vietnamese dong, or any currency tied to the emerging global financial reset, then what we are covering today is exactly what you need to hear. Stay with us through every word of this broadcast, because the developments we are unpacking are among the most significant signals we have seen in years, and they carry direct implications for every veteran investor in this community. We are tracking breaking reports surrounding what insiders are calling a structured redemption rollout, and the signals coming from the banking world, international diplomatic channels and monetary institutions are aligning in a way that should have every serious currency holder paying close attention. This is not about surface-level speculation or recycled rumors. This is about the structural mechanics of how your currency holdings could finally convert into real, life-changing liquidity. Many of you in this community have waited patiently through years of doubt, economic uncertainty, and mainstream ridicule. The data we are examining right now strongly suggests that the window of preparation is narrowing, while the window of genuine opportunity is beginning to open wider than it ever has before. To understand why this moment is different, you have to look at the broader transformation happening in the global financial system. The old rules of the unipolar dollar-dominated world are being actively rewritten by nations that have grown too economically powerful to keep their currencies artificially suppressed. Vietnam is one of the clearest examples of this. Over the past 2 decades, Vietnam has transformed itself from an agrarian economy into a high-technology manufacturing powerhouse that attracts billions of dollars in foreign direct investment every single year. Companies like Samsung, Intel, and Apple have moved massive production operations to Vietnamese soil, creating a foreign reserve surplus that has given the State Bank of Vietnam extraordinary leverage on the global stage. Yet despite this economic strength, the dong has remained tightly managed, creating a growing undervaluation gap between what the currency reflects on the open market and the actual productive wealth of the nation behind it. The redemption rollout being reported now is essentially the bridge that closes that gap. It is the moment where the real value of Vietnam's economy is finally allowed to reflect in the exchange rate, rewarding those early investors who recognized the disconnect long before the mainstream financial world did. Reports circulating within the upper tiers of the financial world indicate that specific banking protocols are being activated to handle what is described as a structured exchange event. This is fundamentally different from a standard retail currency transaction. For those holding significant positions in the dong, the exchange process is expected to be highly regulated, appointment-based, and managed by specialized banking divisions that are trained in foreign currency revaluation procedures. Tier 1 banking institutions are reportedly receiving internal guidance on how to process large volume exchanges with a sharp focus on security, liquidity management, and compliance with updated international transparency standards. This quiet readiness posture is the clearest institutional signal we have observed in years, and these institutions do not make these preparations without a directive from the highest levels of global finance. The appointment-based structure being discussed is designed specifically to prevent a chaotic rush on bank branches and to ensure that all anti-money laundering and compliance protocols are strictly followed. Reports further suggest that different tiers of exchange may be implemented, allowing the market to absorb the new valuation without triggering immediate inflationary shocks to the broader global system. This is a sophisticated, coordinated financial maneuver involving the State Bank of Vietnam and international clearinghouses working together to ensure that the transition of wealth is smooth, secure, and professionally managed. For investors, this means that having your documentation organized and your proof of purchase clearly in order will be the single most important factor in determining whether your exchange is seamless or complicated. Beyond Vietnam, this story is deeply connected to the broader global shift toward currency diversification and the rise of new financial frameworks that are challenging the traditional dominance of the Western banking system. Nations across Southeast Asia and the BRICS alliance are increasingly settling trade in their own local currencies, which creates growing organic demand for assets like the dong and the Iraqi dinar. When a currency begins gaining this kind of international utility, its value naturally trends upward as more central banks and trading entities need to acquire it. The redemption rollout is essentially the official recognition of this new reality, providing a structured pathway for the currency to reach its fair market value within a system that is no longer anchored exclusively to fluctuations in the US dollar. For our veteran community members who are also holding Iraqi dinar, the news surrounding the Vietnamese dong carries enormous relevance. These two currencies share remarkably similar structural stories. Iraq, like Vietnam, is a nation sitting on immense natural wealth in the form of oil and mineral reserves, and the Central Bank of Iraq has been aggressively building its foreign currency reserves while modernizing its banking infrastructure to meet International Monetary Fund standards. These are the exact same steps that Vietnam successfully completed in the years leading up to where we are now. As Vietnam moves into a redemption phase, it creates a working blueprint that Iraq is expected to follow, demonstrating to the international community that currency revaluation is a legitimate, proven tool for economic development and global integration. For dinar holders, watching the dong move toward redemption is the proof of concept that many in this community have been waiting years to see. The geopolitical timing of these developments is not accidental. We are witnessing a convergence of high-level diplomatic milestones that are forcing the hand of global finance. There has been a significant increase in meetings between Vietnamese financial officials and their counterparts in Western institutions, with discussions centered on trade transparency and the liberalization of Vietnamese financial markets. These meetings are historically the precursors to major policy shifts because they ensure that the largest players are aligned before a currency is allowed to float or revalue upward. The language emerging from these briefings has shifted notably from describing Vietnam as a developing nation to recognizing it as a comprehensive strategic partner, which in the language of international finance is code for acknowledging that a nation is ready to operate at the highest tier of the global economy. This elevation in status is a prerequisite for any meaningful currency revaluation, and the fact that it is happening now places the redemption rollout as the final piece of a long-term strategic puzzle. Technology is playing a central role in how this rollout will function. Reports indicate that advanced scanning systems and blockchain integrated verification technology will be deployed at redemption centers to validate every note and ensure complete transparency from day one. This high-tech infrastructure is designed to protect both investors and financial institutions, weeding out counterfeit currency and fraudulent operations, while ensuring that every legitimate transaction is fully audit-ready. The use of these state-of-the-art systems signals that this is being treated as a permanent, serious shift in the monetary landscape, not a temporary program or an experiment. It is also being reported that the redemption centers are being staffed by professionals specifically trained in foreign currency revaluation protocols, and that educational materials on wealth management, tax compliance, and long-term financial planning are being prepared for investors who go through the exchange process. This level of thoughtfulness in the planning confirms that the rollout is designed to be a stabilizing, life-affirming event for the community of holders, not a chaotic or exploitative one. For veterans who have already navigated some of the most complex and high-pressure environments imaginable, this kind of structured professional process should feel very familiar. The activity across the back channels of the banking world is reportedly reaching a level of intensity that insiders describe as the final preparatory stage before a public announcement. Digital protocols are being updated with increasing frequency. Compliance frameworks are being stress-tested, and coordination between multiple financial jurisdictions is accelerating. While no specific public date has been confirmed, and any source claiming to have an exact date should be treated with serious skepticism, the directional momentum is undeniable. The planning phase appears to be concluding, and what comes next is the execution phase, moving from the background into the visible world. In international finance, the gap between a private readiness posture and a public announcement can close extremely quickly, which is why staying alert and prepared right now is not optional for serious investors. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have been providing the technical assistance necessary for Vietnam to modernize its monetary policy for years. These institutions do not offer their backing easily. It requires sustained fiscal discipline, meaningful anti-corruption reforms, and comprehensive banking modernization. Vietnam has followed the IMF roadmap closely and consistently, and that institutional backing provides a foundational safety net for the legitimacy of any revaluation. For you as an investor, this means your asset is being supported by the same organizations that govern the entire global financial architecture, and that level of legitimacy is simply impossible to dismiss. One of the most common questions in this community is why the mainstream financial media is not covering any of this. The answer is straightforward. The largest players in global finance prefer to move their capital before a story becomes public knowledge. Information asymmetry is the most valuable currency in high finance, and those who are positioned ahead of a major move do not advertise it. By the time a dong revaluation story appears on a major network, the most significant gains will already have been captured by the early movers. This is precisely why channels like Dinar For Veterans exist. We are here to close the information gap between the elite financial world and the everyday investor, especially the men and women who serve this country and deserve every possible advantage in building their financial future. As we look at what this means for the broader alternative currency community, a successful Vietnamese dong redemption rollout will have a ripple effect that extends far beyond Southeast Asia. It will provide the real-world data and institutional confidence that encourages other nations to pursue similar modernization of their own currencies. The lessons learned and the systems built for the dong exchange will directly inform how the Iraqi dinar revaluation process is eventually structured, along with other emerging market currencies that are waiting for their moment. Holding these assets right now means being positioned at the very beginning of a global movement toward monetary transparency and economic fairness. You are not just an investor in a single currency. You are an early participant in a fundamental restructuring of how the world assigns value to the economic output of developing nations. For the veterans in this community, this moment carries a special kind of weight. You have already demonstrated the discipline, the patience, and the willingness to hold your position under pressure that most people never develop. Those same qualities that served you in uniform are exactly what have kept you in this investment through the years of uncertainty and skepticism. The reports we are tracking right now represent a powerful validation of that endurance. The conviction you maintained when others walked away is the very thing that has positioned you to benefit from what appears to be an imminent and historic shift. The most important actions you can take right now are to ensure your currency was purchased from licensed and reputable dealers, that you have retained every receipt and purchase record, and that your identification and financial documentation are fully organized and accessible. A structured exchange event will require a clean, traceable paper trail, and the smoother your documentation, the faster and more professional your exchange experience will be. This is the due diligence phase of your investment journey, reaching its conclusion, and approaching it with the same professionalism you brought to your service will make all the difference. We will continue monitoring every development across the banking, diplomatic, and institutional channels that are shaping this story, and we will bring you updates the moment credible new information becomes available. The reports we are seeing are the strongest and most consistent signals this community has witnessed in the entire history of this investment. The window is opening, the infrastructure is being prepared, and the reality of a revalued financial future for currency holders is closer than it has ever been. Stay informed, stay ready, and stay connected to Dinar For Veterans. We are honored to be your trusted source through these historic times, and we will see you in the next update.